ecological interactions between species are incessant in nature. They are even essential to life. Beneficial or fatal, these associations are influenced by the environment that shelters them. In their own way, they tell us about the landscapes and bring them to life. Above all, they remind us that ecosystems are fragile ecological chains with precarious balances, and more than ever, it is urgent for us to preserve them. Catch the eye at all costs. Make the colors sparkle, as if to ward off fate. To deny, especially those who proclaim loud and clear, that this landscape has forever taken a vow of poverty. The Moor covers torn coasts and austere lands tormented by the elements. Rebellious, it taunts the winds, the cold, the seas, and the ocean. And it has even imposed itself as the emblematic image of some corners of the old continent. Lüneburg in Germany, Brittany in France, and Scotland. The moor is a setting of low, dense vegetation, which always seems to bow down. Shrubs, grasses, forced into misery on impoverished soil, and which, paradoxically, are the home for a whole rich and diversified fauna. Because without appearing to be so, this ecosystem is a teeming land, colored by a number of species that have made solidarity a principle of survival. A corner of moorland in central Brittany, where a butterfly is associated with a plant. It all starts with the first warmth of spring. The caterpillars of the butterfly wake up from a long hibernation, spent, clumped together in a carefully woven cocoon at the foot of the plant. It's time for them to break forth. For several weeks, they will devour the soft green leaves of the meadow succulent, the plant that sheltered them. It is sometimes called the Devil's Bit because Saint Michael is said to have used it to heal the wounds that Satan inflicted on him. But caterpillars don't believe in saints or demons. This plant is just their sweet sin. They will undergo several molts, engulf dozens of small leaves, in order to resurge and reach their final stage. The caterpillars then become the Marsh fritillary butterfly, thus baptized to show to what extent the destiny of the animal is linked to the vegetal. Its existence is ephemeral, 3 to 4 weeks at most. The time it takes to look for a soulmate and to mate. The laying will take place a few days later, on the devil's bit, of course. A life so short that it will never witness the sight of its beloved flower blooming in the heart of summer. And other species of butterflies will visit the flower. In this couple's story, the butterfly is therefore terribly dependent on the devil's bit, as it can't live without it. Specialists then speak of a commensalistic relationship. The Moor. But shouldn't we say the Moors? Because nature is like that. It often gives into nuance. Dry heath, wet heath, and many more. On hillsides, at the edge of cliffs, in short, where water doesn't have time to linger. It is the dry moor that flourishes. Well-drained soils where the flora must be able to withstand periods of thirst and famine. This is the case with Bel Heather. It offers amazed eyes, a generous purplish violet veil throughout the summer. Another plant is also tough. A plant that has made the dry moor its kingdom. Here, the gorse is also called landier, which shows how representative it is of this landscape. At first glance, this shrub seems silent, a bit hostile, with its long, threatening thorns. But we shouldn't judge too quickly, because it is actually beneficial. It is particularly essential for tiny insects that are easily spotted by their huge webs that wrap the plants. These are the Tetronic Larius. These little bugs belong to the large family of dust mites. They live in colonies of several thousand individuals, and only on gorse, the host plant for this species. They make these webs to protect themselves from bad weather, predators, and quietly devour the thorns and young shoots of their host. To disperse, Tetronicus rely on the wind, which sometimes blows away a piece of web, or on densely related proximity, which makes it easy to move from one stem of gorse to another. This biological interaction, where one shamelessly takes advantage of the other at the risk of endangering it, is parasitism. But sometimes, things are not as simple as that. In the dry moor, lying on the gorse, we find a scrounger. Its name? Dodder. It's these long fuchsia or yellow filaments that catch the sun. In reality, this plant has neither leaves nor chlorophyll. It is unable to carry out photosynthesis. To survive, it must therefore parasitize other plants, drinking their substantial sap. To do this, the dodder embraces its victim slowly. A very interesting embrace, during which it places microscopic suckers on the stems of its host. Thanks to them, it will collect the water and nutrients it absolutely needs. A vegetable leech, you might say. Parasitism, therefore, a beneficial association. For the profiteer, at least. And the story could end there. But a German-Chinese team of scientists discovered a few years ago that the dodder was not always harmful. If the plant parasitized by the dodder is attacked by insects, it will emit proteins in order to alert the surrounding plants. And this alarm signal would go through the dodder, which becomes in its own way an emergency line. Finally, the latter, who lives at their expense, would therefore be profiteer and beneficiary at the same time. Gorse is still at the center of a perfect biological interaction, a symbiosis in which each partner finds a vital interest. This beneficial association is invisible because it takes place in the secret recesses of the earth. To make it perceptible, the young gorse must be dug up and put on a block of wood. Bumps appear on the secondary roots. Pearls of life. They are called nodosities. They are bacteria that have amalgamated and capture nitrogen from the air for the plant. Because the moor's soil is poor in this essential element, and without this symbiosis, the gorse could not survive. In exchange, it provides the bacteria with carbonaceous elements that they absolutely need. Plants also know how to be generous when flowering. Thousands of blossoms then brighten the panorama for a good part of the year. Because it is thus so in the large family of Ilex, its Latin name. Some bloom in spring, others in winter. This constitutes a constant food reserve for all the insects of this ecosystem. Pollination is an essential biological interaction, one of the foundations of life. The gorse still delights the herds left free to graze. The occasion to remember that for a long time, men used it as fodder. They ground it so that the thorns would not hurt the delicate mouths of their cows and horses. A benevolent attention which doesn't seem necessary with sheep. And these latter, in exchange for the feast, do not hesitate to help it. It is not uncommon for a few seeds to cling to the fur of animals, which allow the plant to spread over a territory. Specialists speak of zoochory. This is the dispersal of plants by animals, whether domesticated or wild. But now, the weather darkens. Clouds come from afar, threaten. A deluge falls, implacable on the landscape. It's not just the rain that gives the moor its character. It's above all the terrain and the soil, whether permeable or not. Where the water stagnates, the landscape looks like a swamp. It changes its mood and adjective. We then speak of wet moorland, with species of its own. When there is water, there are usually damselflies and dragonflies. With their slender silhouettes and very frail wings, who could imagine that these members of the large Odinet family are in fact real serial killers, indispensable for the balance of the environment. Because predation is a crucial biological interaction in the relationships between species. First, the predator regulates the populations of its prey, and as surprising as it may seem, this benefits individuals who have not been devoured. Fewer of them sharing the available food resources. They eat more and reach adulthood healthier. Above all, the predator forces the species it consumes to evolve, to invent new strategies if they want to survive. Harmful predation at the individual level would therefore become beneficial at the collective level. But back to the damselflies and dragonflies. They are among the amazing huntresses of the wet moor, and have been throughout their existence. Once mating is complete, the female lays her eggs in water or mud, a few dozen to a few hundred in general. After hatching, the dragonfly begins the larval stage. And here's what it looks like. Specialists call this stage of development naiad. And it remains underwater for 2 to 3 years. The time for it to carry out successive molts, between 9 and 16, depending on the species. A considerable physiological effort, which invariably whets its appetite. Dragonfly larvae are greedy. They will consume hundreds of tadpoles, pondfish, and insects of all kinds. Its strength is its mask. An arm that unfolds in a fraction of a second to allow it to capture its prey from a distance. One wonders if the beast might not have inspired some science fiction writers. Odonata are considered super predators of these wetlands. Predators until the end of their life, even after their transformation. It will occur in the spring. Like a calling, the larvae decide one fine day to come out of the water. It must then find a place where it can comfortably anchor itself for the big moment. spectacular metamorphosis, a prodigious transformation, which transforms an aquatic creature into a terrestrial animal. This phase of emergence lasts a few tens of minutes. Time to spread your wings and dry them. The animal will now resume its carnivorous diet. As an adult, the dragonfly will live for a few weeks, and a large number of insects will end up between its mandibles. But there is natural justice. Predator one day, and prey the next. Because dragonflies and damselflies are part of the diet of many species. The wet moor has its star plant, purple moorgrass, omnipresent like immense grassy carpets, which seen from the sky give the landscape this touch of pointillism. Molinia is a grass that is both elegant and light, with almost a feeling of fragility. And yet, the plant is a rock. In fact, Molinia forms a thick, fibrous, and leathery clod. A plant column that widens over the years, intertwines with its neighbors, and ends up being ineradicable. This dense bouquet is called Torridon by scientists, and it is beneficial for dozens of species. In this mini jungle, many appreciate being able to live and move about discreetly. It's a bit like to live long, live hidden. Many spiders breed here. This is where they settle their brood and watch their young grow. All these little entities will benefit from the thousands of Molinia that invade the moors, especially to make a feast. Some opt for the higher parts of the plant. The time to weave a web. Then, you have to wait. Not very long in reality, because the Molinese are an ecosystem in themselves. There is something to eat and drink at any time and for anyone. Others, like the labyrinthine, weave their silken laces rather at the foot of the plant. A funnel-shaped trap from which the animal can watch. And for unwary prey, death is guaranteed at the end of the tunnel. But in this setting, there is an even more surprising spider. Unique, even. To see it, you have to approach the water's surface. It measures 1 centimeter on average and likes the tranquility of marsh ponds and well-stocked vegetation. This spider spends its entire life underwater. It is the only known truly aquatic arachnid on Earth. A phenomenon all the more astonishing as it is not really equipped for diving. Its respiratory system is that of a terrestrial animal. To breathe, it must therefore rise to the surface and create an air bubble, which remains fixed thanks to water-repellent hairs on its abdomen. This bubble gives it that silvery appearance. Argyrus in Greek, Argyroneta in English. The shallow waters of the damp moors serve as its pantry. It feeds mainly on insect larvae, crustaceans, and small invertebrates. Its hunting technique is the lookout. In other words, it crouches, waiting for its prey to come to it, attracted by small vibrations that the spider creates with its legs. The victims are then liquefied by digestive juices and injected to be sucked up, just like that. And inevitably, at some point during the day, it's time to relieve itself. The Argyronet has adapted to draw its food resources from its ecosystem. It is a biological interaction, and it goes further. The air bubbles around its abdomen also allow it to build, under Molinia roots in particular, a diving bell where it will live and reproduce. This spell, once created, directly captures oxygen from the water. This allows the spider to stay like this for hours without having to come back up to breathe. Unnoticeable on its small scale, the argyronet finally participates in the complex gas exchanges of the environment in which it lives. Others also, modestly, at their level, participate in these great balances without our even paying attention to it. Look at the Jerrys. Who hasn't witnessed the fascinating spectacle of their water slides? Sometimes nicknamed skaters or Jesuses in Anglo-Saxon countries. Yet, there is nothing miraculous about their ability to walk on water. They have water-repellent hairs located on the end of their legs. Equipped with long hind limbs, these mobile and lively insects are valiant fighters, especially during the mating season. For their menu, Jerrys feast on all sorts of small organisms that inhabit the surface of the water. But they are also willing gravediggers. That is, they don't say no to dying prey. They are therefore among the great cleaners of the ponds and prevent corpses from contaminating the environment. By constantly gliding, often by the hundreds, these insects would have another beneficial effect. They mix the superficial layers of water in interface with the air and participate in its oxygenation. They further accelerate interactions between these two elements and the biofilm. This translucent film mixture of bacteria and microscopic fungi, which sometimes covers stagnant environments. The wet moor, where sometimes surprising associations of benefactors are built. Provided, of course, that you take the time to stop and, above all, to observe. One of them starts with cows, but not just any cows. The herd must imperatively ruminate organically. These cows always end up defecating, and on their dung, with a little luck, appear these colored filaments. This is Sphagnum ampullesium, a delicate moss topped with bulb-shaped flowers. Hence the name ampullesium. Sphagnum only grows on 100% natural ruminant excrement. Otherwise, traces of medicinal products are found in their droppings, and the interaction stops there. This raw material is now rare. No wonder the species is listed on the Red List of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. On the verge of extinction, even in France, where it is only found on about 20 sites. Less precarious is the situation of other mosses typical of wet moors. Sphagnum moss are thick and soft plants that have exceptional biological characteristics. First of all, they are impressive sponges. A kilo of sphagnum could store 70 liters of water. A singularity that allows them to act as a buffer and compensate for excess or scarcity of water, depending on the vagaries of the weather. Sphagnum moss is also a powerful CO2 sensor in the air. They clean up the environment and, in successive layers, form the peat bogs that humanity has long used for heating. These cooling cushions are home to dozens of insect species. They serve as the ideal breeding ground for a whole flora that one would never imagine encountering in a moor, like Sundus. The name of these carnivorous plants comes from the Greek droseros, which means drops of dew. In reference to these pearls that decorate the stems and which recall the droplets of humidity in the early morning. They are also decoys to trap prey. Lit by the sun, they suggest that there is an abundance of water or nectar here. Many insects see nothing but fire in it. Ants, butterflies, and other flies actually end up stuck on the sundews, which then only have to close the trap. The victims die of suffocation, and in the hours that follow, the digestive juices of the plants will purely and simply dissolve them. A few days later, these prey will be a distant memory. The sundews are satiated. Ponds, swamps, and wet moors capture astronomical quantities of water. They are essential reservoirs for other biotopes. In particular, they feed the flows of the rivers downstream, enrich them with nutrients, trace elements, and other microscopic organisms that will feed the food chains. The pearl mussel benefits from this generosity. This mussel likes running well-oxygenated and cool waters. It feeds by filtering suspended particles in the current. Its presence is also a sign of the good quality of the environment. The pearl mussel is an exceptional species. First, the beast is an outstanding jeweler. Its name, Perlithus, indicates that it shapes, like oysters, pearls. Then its reproductive cycle, which involves a biological interaction of incredible complexity. To accomplish this, the shell needs fish. Brown trout most often. And this is how things work. Once fertilized, the female mussel releases microscopic eggs in the current that will attach themselves to the gills of the salmonids to thus grow well protected from predators. It is almost impossible to observe this phenomenon in nature. Too discreet. Because above all, the species is on the verge of extinction. In Brittany and Dresden in Germany, fish farms participate in a European program to safeguard pearl mussels. Their larvae are those tiny white dots on the gills that cling without risk to the trout's breathing. They will remain fixed for 10 months before letting go. Collected by humans, they are fed and monitored in aquatic nurseries for 5 to 6 years. The time for them to gain little curves and reach the size of 8 millimeters. Then, it's the big leap. Men reintroduce them into the natural environment, gradually, with delicacy. First in boxes hidden from sight, to prevent ill-intentioned individuals, fishermen or collectors, from ruining years of effort. Much later, the mussels will find running water and will finally take the course of their life. And if all goes well, they will live 130 to 150 years. Their descendants will one day wait for the passage of wild trout to live a benefactor association. Totally natural this time around. The Moors, these ecosystems are on borrowed time today. Urbanization, drying due to rising temperatures, development of tourist activities. Although hardy, these species find it difficult to resist. Ultimately, the relationships they have forged with each other over millions of years of evolution are in danger of disappearing, with the associations of benefactors forever erased.